Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. This is Ukraine War News Update, the first part thereof for the 11th of April 2025. And I am back in my very messy study with my much better mic that most people don't like as much as my crappier headset mic. I just probably need to bring it a bit closer to my face really to have the desired effect. And yeah, I am a little late to it today. I've been away for a week, and then as soon as I got back, I got back at 2 o'clock last night because I had to drive twin number 2 down for a street art workshop. We had a bit of a clash going on there, and then had to wake up at crack of dawn and take him to the skate park in Portsmouth to do some spray painting. And do you know what? And this is relevant to Ukraine. So yeah, whatever. Don't care about your life. Okay, but Twin 2, he's an interesting one. I've talked about him a number of times before. He's a very interesting fella. And he's 14, and he's getting into street art and spray painting, graffiti, and you're thinking, really? I mean, his sketchbook is amazing. He's very good at what he's doing, but I don't know where this is going. I'm just thinking, oh my goodness. But I'm trying to channel that in a responsible place where we were today. And he was like, why are you doing this? Why does this, float your boat? And he's like, I want to change the world, but also have a legacy. So he has this kind of like, he wants to be famous type thing, as many people do, but particularly him. But I like the idea. He wants to make a change, and he's like, I could spray paint things like NAFO. I'm like, yeah, you do listen to what I talk about. Speaking of which, this arrived when I was away, which is pretty cool. So this is a patch display sheet thing. So look, I've just put 3 on there. I'm going to get some patches together and whack that up. That was awesome. Anyway, a bit late. Let's get to it. Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats of play. You can find them in the description to the video and a link there. We have 1,210 personnel lost. 1 tank. You might think, this is a bit of a downtick. The last couple of days have been a bit like that. 15 troop carrying AFVs. That is below the daily average. But then it's worth knowing that this is what the weather is looking like in the south, right? So snow way through, says Tim White. The extreme weather moved south to cover all of Ukraine. A couple of videos to show the situation. In Kherson and Mykolaiv, the mean April daily high temperature is 16 degrees Celsius with 6 to 7 hours of sun a day and 0 snow. So this is not your average. And then not 16 degrees Celsius and sunny today in southern Ukraine, that's for sure. Mykolaiv's leaders say they're likely to cancel all public transport as conditions worsen. Wow, that's blowing a bit of a blizzard there. So that might well affect what's going on the front line. You will see if you've got winds that are high, throwing out snow, visibility's cut, you are not going to be flying your drones particularly much at all. And this is going to stop your vehicles moving around with ease. And so therefore, this will have an effect on the frontline activity. 15 troop-carrying AFVs, as I said, below the daily average. 61 artillery systems, that's still really high. So, for all of what I've just said, there's still a huge artillery loss number, of course. Like I've said before, and I wonder, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I've talked about how montages of videos often come out on a particular day and give you, say, 30 pieces of kit, and you're thinking, okay, that's amazing, and you put that down in the open source intelligence community. You're like, right, that's published today, so we're going to release that today as a statistic, and yet actually that's referring maybe back to the last 3 weeks, and all of that kit gets taken out over the last 3 weeks. Well, that could be the same for the general staff. I don't know whether a unit provides a bunch of video evidence to the general staff, like here's 25 artillery pieces that our unit has destroyed over 3 weeks. That gets submitted to the general staff, and then they put that 25 on to the figures for the day before, rather than all of that evidence being collated over time by the unit. The unit's been doing that work over 3 weeks. Are they submitting all of that information to the general staff every day for 3 weeks, or do they wait and then dump it? Is there a data dump that happens? We know that happens with people like Andrea Perpetua and the open source intelligence community. Does it happen with the general staff as well? What I'm trying to say is that, isn't that weird that there's 61 pieces of artillery lost. And I'm thinking snow could have affected all sorts, and drones won't be easy to fly in those kind of conditions. And yet you still got a massive artillery systems number there. Okay, one multiple launch rocket system, 165 vehicles and fuel tanks, so that's really high again, and 2 pieces of special equipment. No perpetual list as far as I'm aware today. What else do we have? Russians have dropped another aerial guided glide bomb accidentally on the Belgorod region. Belgorod's taken a heck of a lot of these. It's the second in 3 days, and 8 residential buildings were damaged. Astra reports that at least 51 aerial bombs and 3 missiles have fallen from Russian aircraft in Russia and in the occupied territories of Ukraine since the beginning of 2025. So this year alone, we're just into the third way through the 4th month. And 51 bombs and 3 missiles have been dropped inside Russian territory. Right, the Russians have begun to go on assaults not just in the Bukankas or the Zhigulis, but on the Gaz-69 Kozlik. So in the USSR, such cars were produced from 1953 through to 1973. The fact that you are seeing vehicles like this, and we have seen a number of vehicles that have been done up, and some old motorcycles as well. The fact that we are seeing these on the front line, I think, tells you very much that the Russians are running out of kit. But they've been doing this for a long time. On the one hand, this is kind of embarrassing for the Russians, but on the other hand, they're still manning these vehicles with human beings and throwing them at the Ukrainians and still taking territory. So as far as they're concerned, don't give a damn if it's a 1953 Kozlik or like a completely new Patriot infantry mobility vehicle. Whatever. Who cares? We're still taking the ground, and the Ukrainians aren't, type thing. Now, I'm going to be really interested to see the frontline update, which will be a sort of 8-9 day frontline update. If I can get time to do that today, I will. Another bit of video evidence to suggest that the Russians are struggling for the sort of equipment I was just hinting at. They're using here ATVs, all-terrain vehicles, things like quads. Everything that reaches the contact line does not return. The enemy advanced on 3 ATVs. All of them were destroyed, said the 110th OMBR, so 110th Assault Brigade. This is the Russians charging at the Ukrainians on quads or near to the Ukrainian lines, dismounting, and then all of the quads getting hammered. I think I'm showing you that to give you an understanding that they could be running low on combat assets. So when you go back to this piece of evidence here, we have 165 vehicles and fuel tanks, huge amount of vehicles and fuel tanks, and virtually no tanks, and lower than average troop carrying AFV losses. So I think the category of vehicles and fuel tanks is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and then you see some of these vehicles being used on or near the front line. Okay, moving on to distance strikes. Not too much information out, and it's already sort of 4:30 my time in the afternoon. So really, not a lot of evidence of what happened in Dnipro yesterday. There's a big fire that took a long time to put out. No real evidence about attacks last night from either side. Ukraine was attacked with a ballistic missile and 39 drones. So again, we've got a low number of drones. I don't want to repeat myself, sound like a stuck record, but I think that they have had a manufacturing facility hit at some point, probably I can't remember how long this has been going on for, but probably 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. Ukraine attacked with 39 drones, not the largest attack, and it ended early. Only 2 of the Russian drones got through, so that's much better interception rate. 24 shot down, 13 stopped by electronic warfare, etc. Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk, and Zhytomyr regions did suffer. And then we understand that yesterday there was a big old strike on Dnipro. Actually 2 days ago, but the information came out after I was sort of talking to you. Yesterday's it was yesterday, sorry. It wasn't 2 days ago. It was yesterday, though, but earlier. Yesterday's Russian missile strike on hygiene products warehouse in Dnipro killed 1 civilian and injured 9, causing a massive fire. This is what the Ukrainians are saying. Who knows whether it was a strike on a genuine military target. But the Ukrainians are saying, look, it's a hygiene products warehouse. Today marks a 1 month as well, Anton Gerashenko says, since Russia refused to accept the full 30-day ceasefire proposed by the US and Ukraine. During this time, Russia has attacked Ukraine with nearly 70 missiles of various types, over 2,200 Shahed drones and over 6,000 guided glide bombs. Last night, the Russians attacked Kupiansk in Kharkiv region with aerial bombs, and medical center, etc. were damaged. In Dnipro, rescuers only by the morning liquidated, or that means put out with liquid, a large-scale fire of 6,000 square meters, which arose due to the attack on April the 10th. The number of injured has increased to 9. 1 died, and there it is there. That was 6,000 square meters at its height. Meanwhile, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has confirmed that Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff really flew to Russia. Now, we're going to talk about it later, so I won't go on to that now. But Steve Witkoff is in Russia with Putin. Yes, so this is a Kozlik vehicle. It's probably in the wrong place, actually. Russia's latest military innovation, troops now attacking in Gaz-69 Kozlik vehicles produced from between 53 and 73. And that shows that they are in a little bit of a bind. But yes, so the big strike or big fire, at least in Dnipro yesterday and into the evening and night, but no knowledge of Ukrainian strikes on Russia and really of any significant strikes from Russia onto Ukraine. So it seems like a relatively quiet night. On to other bits and pieces. Estonia has detained the oil tanker Kuala under the flag of Djibouti, part of Russia's shadow fleet transporting oil from Ust-Luga, as according to the head of the Estonian Navy. So that is flagged in a nation from the sort of Horn of Africa and being used as part of the shadow fleet is a claim here. And we do have a video of it, the Kuala of the Russian shadow fleet. Special Kherson Cat says after the detention, the vessel provided a flag certificate, but a representative of Djibouti said that the vessel is not listed in their register. There's also no information about the owner. In other words, this is something of a ghost ship, and it's really good. Finders keepers. Really good that the Estonian Defence Forces have detained this vessel, and hopefully can just, I guess, take it from the Russians, stop them using it again, take the oil as well, I guess. Putin's aide Patrushev has commented on Estonia's intention to sink ships in the Baltic Sea. So this isn't quite about stealing the ships, or not stealing, that's really wrong term, but detaining them due to their lack of certification and etc., being part of the illegal shadow fleet. This is to do with cable cutting and the very shady operations of potentially of a number of Russian vessels or Russian linked vessels in the Baltic Sea area. So Patrushev has commented on Estonia's intention to sink ships in the Baltic Sea. So the Estonians came out, and I think I reported this yesterday, saying they are, I think they're trying to pass a bill, or I don't know if they did actually finally pass it, in order to allow them to do that. If they're suspected of intending to damage undersea cables. He said, well, it's disgusting. We must think about how to counteract it. Estonia itself can't realise it, so someone is behind it. We need to understand and get more information on how to counteract it. So this is a law that's currently being developed in Estonia for extreme cases if the vessel refuses to comply with orders and a number of other conditions, including a threat to many lives, etc., then it will be taken out. The bill has not been passed by the Parliament of Estonia as of now, but is something that they are working on. Now, talking about oil, the price of Urals oil, the main export grade of Russian oil, has fallen below $50 per barrel. Some claims is at 49 previously. Some were saying no, I think it's higher. But anyway, apparently now at lower than $50 a barrel for the first time since June 2023, amid a general decline in global oil prices and stock markets. So according to data from the international pricing agency Argus, excellent news for the world in terms of, cheap energy there, but it means that Russia is going to be unable to produce this oil at a profit, and of course that will really hurt them. Anton Gerashenko says there's been a US bill proposed to confiscate oil from Russia's ghost fleet tankers, according to Reuters. The bill, introduced by Republican Senator Joni Ernst and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, has gives the US the ability to go after, to sanction the Russian shadow fleet and stop them making that money off oil. It would create a fund to enforce sanctions against the so-called ghost fleet of tankers that Russia relies on to transport oil to avoid Western countries' sanctions over its war against Ukraine. The bill creates a fund to enforce sanctions on vessels that sometimes also transport oil from Iran. Interesting. So, double whammy there. Now we are seeing, here's another video of Chinese, Vietnamese, Africans, North Koreans going to fight in Ukraine on the side of Russia. This is a real issue for the Ukrainians. If the Russians can continue to bolster their forces through mobilizing or through recruiting foreign fighters, foreign mercenaries, then they are going to, I guess it's going to be cheaper. So these people are often going to be coming from places where they're not making, I presume they're not making too much money. And so the Russians will not only pay them more, but the benefit for the Russians here is I presume there'll be no payment in terms of benefits, compensation to the family if they are injured or if they die. So these guys are probably taking quite a high risk, but they may be either low aspiration or not. No, I guess it's quite high aspiration, but like low ability to, I don't know, do other jobs that could pay better. And they end up in these places doing this kind of stuff. And Ukraine are struggling to have an answer to that in terms of, for them, yep, there's the International Legion, but I think Russians do a better job of just cleaning up all sorts of people from around the world and getting to fight. And it will be cheaper for them than having their own indigenous soldiers in terms of, I don't think they'll have to pay out compensation if these guys die. Now, media has identified 51 Chinese citizens who have joined the Russian army since June 2023, according to Kyiv Independent. Important Stories, which is a media outlet, has found that 31 Chinese citizens have signed up with the Russian military in 2023 and another 20 for the first 5 months of 2024. So the claim there is 51 in total. I mean, it's not a world-changing amount, but it could well be the tip of the iceberg. I don't know. All these things are challenges for Ukraine. These are people, and if it's like a bunch of Koksan self-propelled guns coming from North Korea, then that's people and equipment that will need to be attrited and that will attrit the Ukrainians. Now, Kyiv Independent reports that Ukraine has agreed on a full ceasefire. It did do that, but it got nothing in return. Russia refuses to comply. People on the streets of Kyiv and those in high cabinet say they don't believe a ceasefire can be achieved in the foreseeable future, nor that the US can bring one as it has promised. I think people have probably got a general idea that the Russians are recalcitrant, intransigent, and they are not particularly true to their words, and their intentions are more likely to continue fighting this war for as long as possible to have the greatest chance of achieving their maximalist goals. This is completely unsurprising to me that Ukraine were happy to play ball and the Russians just have done nothing about it. And yet the Americans still pander to the Russians. I was seeing some criticisms today that Trump's got, well, we'll come to Trump actually in a second. Yeah, let's start with Witkoff. So Stephen Ivan Witkoff has arrived in Moscow. So he's the envoy to Russia, a golf buddy of Trump, who's also a real estate mogul and billionaire. Of course, really well trained in negotiating with the Russians. Last time we heard from him, he was on Tucker Carlson regurgitating complete Russian propaganda. This guy is so far deep in the Ruski Mir that he is nothing of an ally to Ukraine. He is just, the US have changed sides, right? The US Special Envoy touched down on an unannounced visit to meet Putin. Seems like the terrorist leader has summoned a minion for the monthly humiliating wait before forcing him to listen to the same old propaganda and demands, says Tim White here. And in fact, there's video of Steve Witkoff and Putin meeting. The entire Trump clan would gladly eat their own family for a moment with this midget gargoyle, says Jay in Kiev. It's an absolute shocker that the US are pandering to the Russians and sending a lamb to the slaughter. You think Steve Witkoff's going to be able to outmaneuver Vladimir Putin? Just incredible. What naivety. Now, Donald Trump has come out today and said the following. Russia has to get moving. Too many people are dying, all caps. Thousands a week in a terrible and senseless war. A war that should have never happened and wouldn't have happened if I were president. The problem with just repeating this rhetoric over and over is like, well, you are president. You are president now, and you have been president, since technically since November, but really super technically since January the 20th. Okay. So a good couple of months. You said you're going to solve this in one day. You haven't. You lied. You completely misunderstood what the complexities were. In fact, I don't think you understand, Trump, anything to do with Russia or Ukraine. Not in any requisite detail. And I don't think that you are ever going to see this come to a conclusion for as long as Trump does nothing. How many times have we heard him say, I'm peed off, I'm angry, too many people are dying, like he's saying here, Russia has to get moving, Russia's delaying, dilly-dallying, etc. Yeah, okay, say that all you like, but you've done nothing. You have not lifted a single finger against the Russians. There's no meaningful sanctions improvement or increase. There's no military aid to Ukraine. You're just a lot of hot air. Just, put your money where your mouth is and do something. As Phillips O'Brien says, isn't it about time Trump or someone else close to him says some BS line about how frustrated and annoyed they are with Putin and how he will soon hit Russia with super duper sanctions? That they would hit Russia with super duper sanctions, and then of course they'll bend over and do everything Putin wants. Just rinse and repeat at the moment. Now, the US ambassador to Ukraine, and I'm sorry, but this says everything. So the US ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink, who, if you remember, got into trouble the other day for not mentioning Russia. She was clearly, memoed with, you're not allowed to mention Russia negatively. You're not allowed to say that they are bombing the Ukrainians, that they're responsible for this, they're responsible for that. And so these statements about Russia throwing explosives into cities and killing children are like, oh, the war is terrible, people keep dying. Yeah, but who's responsible for it? Oh, some people. Yeah, some people live over there. What, in Moscow? How about people live in Moscow? Not necessarily, just generally over there. What, the Russians? I mean, you might call them Russians. We just like to say nothing. Deaths on both sides. Is that good enough? No, it's not. It's not good enough. But Bridget Brink has been a pretty decent ambassador to Ukraine, as far as I can work it out. She's now stepped down. So she's stepping down after serving since May 2022. She came under fire for that post on Twitter about the rocket attack on Kryvyi Rih, where she failed to mention it was a Russian attack and the strike killed 20 people. Now she stepped down. I think this essentially says very loudly that the US is no longer aligned with Ukraine, and she is not happy with having to toe the party line when the party line appears to be aligned with Russia. So she's now gone. As someone says here, Brink was a strong advocate for Ukraine. It was only a matter of time before Trump replaced her with a pro-Russian ambassador. Again, that tells you all you need to know. Now, there's been a Ramstein meeting today. I think Hegseth has been there on the blower, on the phone with them, or virtually. It's being chaired by John Healey, the British Defence Secretary of Defence. He is good. He's a good chap. I have no qualms with him. He's on it. At today's Ramstein, Ukraine was announced to receive 21 billion euros in aid, and this is a record support. So it's about $23.8 billion. Pierce is not yet clear whether these are new or old, or both together. There are often pledges and then repeats of pledges. We talked about this a lot before. I've got quite a lot to discuss with you in a military aid video, which will roll pretty swiftly on the back of this one. But really good news there. So that has happened, and there's a lot of news coming out about aid going to Ukraine. But I keep talking about how the US has swapped sides in this war, and it's just ridiculous. So we heard that Tim Pool, who took money from Tenet Media from the Russians to spread Russian propaganda, $400,000 for a single episode a month, was it? Just stupid amounts of money. He was added to the White House press pool. Who is doing this? Who is behind this? Like, oh, should we have this pro-Russian person and this pro-Russian? So now they've added another entity who's even worse than Tim Pool. And Tim Pool's terrible. It spreads outright Russian propaganda and takes money from the Russians, now in the press pool. Now we have Zero Hedge. So if I was just to... let's get a Wikipedia entry on Zero Hedge. Wikipedia. They are a far-right libertarian financial blog and news aggregator. They're bearish in the investment outlook and analysis and deriving blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you might think, okay, Zero Hedge, yeah, that fits in line with the kind of political situation. But it's just really bad because these guys are like properly pro-Russian. There's a whole section here on alleged Russian influence. In March 2020, American journalist Seth Hetena wrote an op piece in the New Republic titled "Is Zero Hedge a Russian Trojan Horse?" and provided details on the links between Krasimir Ivandijski, the site's publisher's Bulgarian father, and the Soviet-era activities in propaganda revealed during litigation initiated by the father against Hetena in the Bulgarian courts. Hetena commented that Zero Hedge has become a forum for the hateful, conspiracy-driven voices of angry white men on the alt-right. Racists, anti-Semites, extreme right-wingers and conspiracy nuts were an undeserved audience and, as it turns out, a profitable one. In February 2022, intelligence officials from the US claimed that Zero Hedge has amplified Russian propaganda by publishing articles written by Russian state-run media, so on and so forth. There is more to it than that. You can go and find it in a number of places, and there's a section here on the political views of Zero Hedge as well. But they are, typically egregious, I would say, entity outside of the Russian influence thing, right? And that the White House adds people like this to the press pool is a problem enough. Like, this is not serious mainstream journalism. We can slag off mainstream journalists, but actually, you know, there are publishing criteria, there are fact checking requirements. But if you're going to put people like Zero Hedge on the list here, then do you know what? The White House is a joke. And honestly, I don't give a damn if some of you guys out there are just, I don't know, you have a fetish for Trump. If you've got a fetish for Trump, well done. You're a wrong one. Because that guy is wrong on Ukraine, and therefore he's wrong on politics, and he's wrong on morality. And he can jog on, right? And if the people around him, like Tucker Carlson, like disgusting human beings who are spreading outright lies about Ukraine, are platforming people like Steve Witkoff, and Steve Witkoff is regurgitating Russian talking points and is then going to do negotiations with fricking Vladimir Putin, and then you're getting in Tim Pool and Zero Hedge on your press pool, you are corrupted, you are compromised. The White House is wrong. It's a whole bunch of wrong uns. And do you know what? If I lose viewers over this, I don't give a damn, because I know I'm right, and I will stand by my morality on this one. I'm sorry, it is not good enough. The American government is not good enough. It has, like, we can slag off Biden for being slow and compromised by anti-escalation management, but he knew damn well who the good guys were. It was obvious, right? These guys don't. They just don't. They're wrong. They are wrong. Prove otherwise. If you think these guys are right for Ukraine, prove otherwise. Because they're doing everything at the moment that is positive for the Russians. And when they do complain about the Russians, they don't do anything. Trump comes out and says, oh, they're dragging their feet. Okay, well done. Yeah, well done, Trump. Yeah, you said that. What are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Because it looks at the moment like you're doing the square root of naff all. Right. Sorry, I haven't had a... Sitting down in this chair, I'm much more comfortable to just shout. Number of MPs in the Verkhovna Rada, so the Ukrainian parliament, may be reduced from 450 to 300. Wow, that's a quarter. So that's a 25% reduction due to the... No, it's not. That's 3 times 15, isn't it? No, it's a third. That's a 33% reduction. Okay, the number of MPs in the Verkhovna Rada may be reduced from 450 to 300 due to the decline in population. In other words, they've lost a third of their population, says the Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada, Ruslan Stefanchuk. Quote, when there were 52 million people, it was one thing, but today, when there are much fewer people, the issue of representation in society needs to be revised. Absolutely, yep. That's a sad reflection of where the country is, having lost all those people. I'm going to leave you on a positive. I've told you before that I like Prince Harry, right? He's the good one. I mean, Prince William's all right, but if I was to go and have a beer with any of the royals at all, it'll be Prince Harry every time a coconut. Now, I became a bit of... not a fan of his, but I appreciated him when he was doing work with the Obama Foundation, and I watched him give a bunch of speeches and interviews, and he was absolutely morally on point. He was talking in terms of this, like, and I talked about this to you before with regard to billionaires. So certain billionaires get to a point of self-actualization at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where like I've achieved everything in life, I've got all this money, I've got more money than I need, so I need to then start thinking about how to make the world a better place. So you get your Buffetts and your I'd say Soros, I put him in that, and Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, and their foundations and stuff. It's like we need to spend a load of money making the world a better place. Then you get people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk that don't do that. They are the kind of power-hungry, no end to the amount of money they can have. Jeff Bezos had a moment when he went to space and came back down and said he started doing stuff for environmental charities because he had actually seen the world from above and saw how fragile it could be and blah, blah, blah. He had a bit of a moment. But I think he's kind of forgotten that, and now he's just still a complete bastard. And Elon Musk is just bleh. Okay. Prince Harry was talking about, I'm totally privileged. I've got this massive platform. And so therefore I need to use this platform to make the world a better place. And he was talking in terms of like that. And I was like, yes. That is what decent human beings say. And he puts his money where his mouth is. So Meghan Markle, say what you like about her. I'm a big fan of hers. They try and do good things, right? If you look at actually what they've done, like, and don't just read your Daily Mail, Daily Express headlines. They're like, yeah, you've done good things. He started up the Invictus Games. So the Invictus Games is like the Olympics for people with war injuries, predominantly. So the Ukrainians turned up, and he met the Ukrainians and gave more hugs. I remember I showed you at the last Invictus Games. I showed you a video of that. He's now gone to Ukraine. We were supposed to go to the Superhumans, this rehabilitation center in Lviv, but we just hit it wrong, and the people that were going to welcome us there, they weren't there that day, and so we couldn't fit it in our schedule. I'm absolutely gutted because it would have been an amazing place to go to. But here we have Prince Harry going there, so I'm going to play you this video.
Welcome to Ukraine.
It's my first visit to Ukraine, and it certainly won't be the last. And it was an absolute honour and a privilege to be able to travel here with the Invictus delegation and to come here to the Superhuman Centre and see what an absolutely mind-blowing care and rehabilitation that is provided here under this purpose-built roof. It's astonishing. And to see the surgeons right inside the eardrum, trying to help, well, as many people as possible. And I've seen a lot of different centres, but they're having a purpose-built centre where everything is under one roof and where individuals are going through surgery, and then in the same building they're being fitted with prosthetics, and then they are sent home, even though most of them don't want to go home, they want to stay here, and I understand why. I've been to many rehabilitation.
Don't take your judgment from tabloid newspapers about humans. Look at who they are. Understand who they are. You can just tell by the way this man hugs other people. This is a human who has a decent compass, a decent fibre to him. He just does. Again, I'll set that table, prove me wrong.
Go home, they want to stay here, and I understand why. I've been to many rehabilitation centres, but there is no rehabilitation centre in the world that feels like this. I want to remind Ukraine that the world stands with them, and Invictus will be a partner with Ukraine and with its Ukrainian Invictus team for as long as needed. And we love the partnership.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Love that bit of positivity. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon in my military aid video that should be up next.